Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business Spotlight, the podcast where we shine a light on the incredible entrepreneurs and business leaders in our community. I'm your host, Craig Whifferman with Music City Action Coach, and today we're excited to introduce to you someone who's blazing a trail in financial planning. Our guest today is Mike Hackler from Cornerstone Wealth. We'll dive into Mike's background, explore the challenges he's faced, and the successes he's enjoyed. Whether you're a fellow entrepreneur, an aspiring business owner, or someone who simply loves to support businesses, this conversation is sure to inspire and inform. So without further ado, let's welcome Mike to the podcast. Mike, how you doing today?
Great, Craig. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Tell us a little bit about Cornerstone Wealth and how you came to be a financial planner.
Sure. So Cornerstone Wealth was born in the middle of COVID. Um, I have been in the industry for 17 years now, certified financial planner, a CFP for over 12 years. I was trained and worked for two large firms, right? The first 14 years of my career. And the opportunity presented itself. And, you know, I just thought it would be the perfect timing to break out on my own and start my own firm. Learned so much, right, from the two other journeys I had been on, and really wanted to incorporate those two systems and processes I learned and tweak it to my own. And, I was finally at the point where I had enough assets, had enough recognition in town, and enough clients to make it happen. And so, just like everything, you don't know if you're ever really ready, if you're ever really prepared. And we just did it, and it's been a huge success, and we're growing, we're thriving. So yeah, that's Cornerstone Wealth in a nutshell, where
Cool.
started from.
So, man, middle of the pandemic, uh, taking the plunge, going out on your own when
Yeah.
not only the whole country, the whole world pretty much kind of shut down. But that's kind of, I mean, going out on your own is harrowing enough, but doing it in that environment, how you have to share with me how all that came about.
I think I told you in our previous conversation, right? I'm a godly man. I open my mornings and usually, hopefully, throughout the day, and turn to the Lord and this and that. And so it was 3 months of prayer. Like, is this the Holy Spirit talking me to do this? Is this the evil one saying it? Whatever it may be. And um, I just change is good. It's just the transition usually that can be scary. So yeah, I mean there were some doubts, some am I doing the right thing? Am I doing, especially for a family. I've got a wife and three younger kids, right? So just wanting to do what was right for them. And so, my background, grew up with a father who did very well, would have never known it, right? Except for a job title. He didn't spend it, he didn't show it off. But one of the things, I was pre-med. I thought I had to follow in his footsteps. He was a chemical engineer for 4 years at Exxon that turned into a cardiovascular surgeon. And one thing growing up, I was big into sports, excelled there. And, I would say 2 to 3 weekends out of the month, he was working. He wasn't there at the games. And that was one thing that as a young boy, I had two older sisters. So I wanted that, right? I wanted that relationship with my father. I wanted to prove to him, to show to him, and when you're young. So anyway, he actually sort of talked me out of med school after my third semester. And that was sort of one of the reasons. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of time and away from your family. And so I wanted to have a business I could run, right, and be flexible. And if I got to leave twice a week on a Thursday, I'm at 4 o'clock to bring my kids to practice, or I want to be involved in these things that I felt like, the one thing that my father wasn't there for me, I wanted to be there for my kids. So that was a bit, it's just a lot of different, I guess, circumstances, situations that brought me into finally having the confidence, right, to break off and start Cornerstone Wealth. And it's been great. And now of course there's challenges. There's now in this day and age, right, with the AI, with everything, I can outsource so much of my business, and not management of assets, but I've got different teams, I've got different people, marketing, all this, that I can pay a fraction of the price, where these other firms that I was with, they brought all that in house, and so they just had bloated expenses. And I just thought I found a better way of, doing what I love to do, and doing it on my own terms to help my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had the you had the nuts and bolts experience of providing the service, but saw opportunities for you if you went out on your own that could bring more value, I guess, to yourself and to the
That's
client base. And that was and then of course with months of prayer and soul searching, decided to take the plunge. So, it's kind of you have the confidence to do it, but you're not sure about where it is you're going to go, or how you're going to get there, and you keep taking one step at a time, and then the transition, like you say, once you get through the transition, do you feel like this might be a silly question? Do you feel like you've made it all the way through the transition now, and now it's like pedal to the metal?
Yes and no, right? I mean, the transition, absolutely. But now it's the growing pains of, all right, do I bring on the new advisor? Do I want to scale to the heights of these two other firms that I was with? And I don't know. I just think in this industry, when you get too big, you lose that connection with your clients, right? You try and do too much. You try and bring in too many clients that don't fit your model, your mold, just because it's, I don't know, it's an ego thing or what, right? So for the last 3 years, my minimum has been 250,000, and actually starting July 1st, been working with my business coach over the past 6 months, and I decided on July 1st to increase that to about 500,000. Now, that's right. There's always exceptions to every rule, right? If it's a friend who maybe has 50,000, but they're starting to be able to put away thousands a month, or if it's a referral from a client who is their in-law or whatever, right? And they don't meet that criteria, there's always an exception. But for new clients, right, growing the business and doing it in the right way, and being able to continue to uh, give the current clients and the new clients, all the attention they need, right, to UPOD, right, I like to say, is under promise and over deliver, and just
Mhm.
be part of their everyday financial decision. And I don't mean like they'll come to me like, hey, can I get this car, right? Or do I have, we collaborate on all the high level stuff. Usually 4 times a year, twice in person and twice the other quarterly on calls or Zoom calls like this, right? Um, but just being able to do these things, and once again, right, still have a life where I don't have to be here till 7 p.m.
Mhm.
Because one of the most important jobs I have is being a father and husband. So it's trying to balance your time, balance your energy, where you put it, and these things. But yeah, I mean, I I love it. But yes, so some of the newer challenges, right, is the growing pains of where to go from here and how to do it right, right? Do I bring in the other advisor who, I don't want to bring in somebody who's just like me. I'm a nerd, right? I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning. I'm looking at what's moving and why in the market. One of the few advisors I know who invest in individual stocks. But don't buy and hold, buy and do my homework, right? I love reading Seeking Alpha right before I go to sleep at 9 o'clock, and watching CNBC when I wake up at 4 to do my stretches because of the back surgeries and stuff. So it's just really trying to stay balanced for everyone that depends on me.
Mhm. Yeah. And gosh, you said a lot there. So, yeah, recruiting another advisor to come in and be a part of your team. Of course, they need to fit your culture and be a part of your vision and buy into it, and um, exhibit that with with your current clients and with future clients. So, even though you want somebody just like you certainly need somebody who buys into your your values and where you see your business going. And then, of course, being in balance yourself, so that you can, you know, be there for your family, of course, and your clients. Man, the markets and the craziness that's going on with trade wars and all. This is a good example of a time when I'm sure you've got a lot of edgy clients, and you're trying to balance
Uh,
their psyche.
yeah. So usually like the first downturn I go through with a client, they'll be calling, texting, emailing, like, what are we doing? What's the game plan? And actually, strangely enough, we're a little more active, right? We don't trade, but we have the ability, once we sit down through the investment policy statement, to raise up to 20% of cash in any portfolio without, calling the client. They understand, right? Because we collaborate on the high level stuff, but they delegate the day to day, the nuts and bolts of the management of the portfolio to me. Um, and looking at the last 6 months, right, the S&P, it's May 30th, 2025, is just about even right now the last 6 months. And the majority of the clients, I've got 3 or 4 different models that I put together and I use. They're up 12 to 18%, right? So we've crushed the S&P 500, and that's just because, right, saw the opportunity in November and December to go risk on with 10 to 20% of the portfolios. First couple of weeks of the year, we sold out most of it, raised the cash, knowing the good things would be coming, right? The tax bills, the deregulation, but we had a feeling beforehand. You got the Doge, the tariffs, just too much uncertainty. If you look at
Yeah.
all presidential election cycles, usually the first 6 months of a new president, it's the market at least drops 10%. So we knew, right, more than likely what was coming.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's better to be luckier than good, but we raised that cash. And I mean, I won't get into it, but I got like these charts I show everybody when they come on board. But correction, right? I don't know if you can see, but this is sort
Mhm.
of where we were in the eye of the storm on that. You had a Thursday, we put the tariffs on that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Monday, 19% dropped within a month, right? And
Yeah.
all because of emotions, right? People,
Yeah.
you got your day traders coming in trying to manipulate. And we put the majority of the money back to work. And so it happened to be the right time. But you got to use guardrails, right? And know, I like to tell people anything's possible, right? By the grace and the will of God. So what are the possibilities? They're always endless. Predictability, let's not play God, right? We can't predict the future, but it's all about probabilities. What are the probabilities of this happening, that happening? So you can set guardrails and you can help the risk reward work in your favor if you know what you're doing. And it's almost counterintuitive, right? To buy low and sell high is easiest thing in the world until you have to implement it, because you're buying low. It feels like the world, or whatever, the company, the sector is going under and never going to recover. And then selling high is, oh, this is going to go on forever. So it's just, once you sort of know, that you're really trying to help people manage their emotions and their expectations, and we can manage the risks. And if you can help manage their emotions and expectations and manage the risk correctly for each client, managing money is pretty simple, right? It's just the emotions and expectations are usually what get people in trouble if they're doing it on their own, or whatever it may be. So usually after the first downturn, right, I go through with a client and they're like, okay, he really does know what he's doing. He's doing it what's best for me and my family and my situation, to where after that, they don't, it's not really calling me up, like, oh, what's going on? We'll have conversations, but usually I call them. Like, I called all of them in the middle of January, saying, we're raising the cash and this is sort of why. And yeah, Mike, we trust you. We know you know what you're doing. And then, some clients you gotta hold their hands a little more, right? Completely understandable when the majority of our clients are sort of business owners, or were business owners, or other like-minded entrepreneurs. So they've done well for themselves, but now if they're retired, they're in that stage of, oh my gosh, like, this mountain of money that I had built up now has to provide for my everyday ongoing lifestyle. And, so it can be scary for them, right? So you just really have to sort of put things in perspective for them, and give them the facts, right, of what's going on and why. And most people can sort of come to grips with that if they can sort of take themselves out of today and look even 3 months, 3 years down the road, whatever it may be. And it's I like to tell people sometimes, half my job is being a therapist, a marriage counselor, a priest, whatever it is, right? But in the end, I'm usually their thinking partner, their sounding board if they want to go into real estate, or looking at bigger investments, right? And so just trying to help them run the numbers, make sure everything makes sense on paper, but also with their current situation. Because something might look great on paper, but some people have different uh, a lot of different things going on. So when you pull this lever, right, you might have to adjust these three over here a little bit to make sure it all works together. And that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. Not only any financial planner, but I would say anyone who's in the space of helping other people with their money, um, is has to be somewhat of a therapist, a counselor, because there's money seems to bring out emotions in one way or the other. So
It is.
I would suggest that probably the key to being a good financial planner is to, you know, and that's the cool thing about it, right? You're kind of outside of them, but you're managing their stuff for them, and you can be emotionless about it, and you can bring fact to it, and be a
Right.
good sounding board and advisor, and hey, man, a coach, right? Uh,
That's it. Right. Yes.
um,
Yeah. And I'm like, look, I mean, when I'm sitting there watching this Wednesday afternoon and Trump's, going live with these terrorists, I mean, they're I've got emotions too. I'm human, but like, I've already known I've got this cash there. Okay, let's wait. You just, you, I don't know, you sometimes become more desensitized to some of that, because the
yeah,
facts, like, right. I know the facts, and it's not It's not the random story the media is trying to portray to you, because that's their job, right? To scare you, 90% of it, just to keep you engaged, and they have to make money, sell ads, right? Keep you locked in. And who are the credible sources, analysts, news channel, you know what I mean? So just throughout the years, you follow this stuff like it's your job, because it's your passion. Um,
Yeah.
you know where to turn when there are questionable circumstances surrounding you. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and all that being said, I can't help but roll my eyes with some of some of the things that happen, from a terror perspective and a, pr- protective type of approach to things. I don't want to get into a political thing, but understanding the economics of it and what's good for everyone is good for everyone. Uh, and the lack of understanding just is beyond my belief, but I don't want to go there.
No.
So tell me more about Cornerstone Wealth, and you're talking about growing, but growing the right way. And you're looking at, I heard you say that you're looking to, or you might be considering hiring another advisor. Is that the biggest thing in front of you right now? Is um, maybe how to grow, but also who to recruit, or where are you? Can you explain where you're at in your growth
Yeah,
plan?
so absolutely, Craig. The last 4 months, I've interviewed 5 different people, right? So you got basically two ways, right? You got the newbie, the greenie, who might just graduated in finance and wants to step in, or they've internship somewhere, or you got the advisor who's got 5, 10, 15 years of experience, right? So the ones that are more experienced, they might have some clients, some um, connections, I guess you could say, but their way of doing things is already formed, right? Can you change them into doing it the Cornerstone Wealth way? But then you got the greenies, who you have to handhold and teach so much more. And then also the expectations of the 3 of the 5 I sat down with, just the numbers, right? Like, they expect so much more coming in, pay, gifting of clients. And I don't know, the way I came into it, 5 years of cold calling, a door not, and not that it gained a lot of assets, but it gained thicker skin. It gained a way of knowing how to respond and react in a more measured approach, and just these things that, right, I can't sit there and teach to somebody. So yeah, it's who fits the mold, and how to continue to develop them into the advisor that would fit in the Cornerstone uh, model, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a challenge. Right, I've got uh, about 60 families I work with, right? Just over 50 million in assets. So my huge, no, much smaller than the firms I worked with that were at, 300 million and 500 million. But seeing how some of those business owners changed over the years, and how they ran, I don't think I ever want to be that big,
Mhm.
tell you the truth. Because at that point, a lot of those people aren't doing what's best for the client. It's more along the lines of how to pad the pockets of the partners or something.
Mhm.
And not everybody's like that, right? Everybody's different. So um, just finding the right fit, right? I mean, over the past 2 months, I've met with 6 new potential clients, and one of them fit the bill, right? I usually interview the client more than they're interviewing me. And,
Mhm.
obviously they don't really know that. I don't come out and say it, but, and it's not, they don't have the assets. I mean, 2 of them that I turned away had over $1 million each that they were willing to move over. right? But if I don't feel like their character, their values are aligned with mine and Cornerstone, I don't want to be fielding calls and emails on a Saturday from these people because that's just their personality, right? So I am at that point where I can sort of grow the business in the right way I want to. First 5 or 10 years in this industry, it's whatever, the breath test or something, right? And then if you're breathing, you're a client, a potential client, but that's not the case anymore. So yeah, there's always, and just Mondays and Fridays, I usually don't schedule meetings, right? Unless it's a client. Doctors usually come in on Fridays because they can, but usually Monday and Fridays, I sort of hold for working on my business. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, it's working in the business. So you're always trying to grow and develop. And right, I mean, how do you do that? Through podcasts of people in my industry, listening to the successful ones, how they did it, what they did, the process, the system, everything they got in place to make sure that when somebody comes on board, right, they get the welcome letter, they get all the information, and they're just constantly being touched in a way. So you're always refining, right, your pitch, your process. If you're not refining it and doing something better, right, you're going backwards because somebody else out there is doing that and will eventually, um, you know, uh, surpass you. But it's, and that's another thing, right? I know a lot of advisors, and it's, in the beginning of the years, it's like, is it a competition? But now it's more of a collaboration, right? Like, what are you doing that's working? What are you doing that's
Mm,
not working? Right? So you're always, at least me, on the other hand, this is something I'm always thinking about. I'm always putting into practice and trying to define it and then implement it.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, so I heard some things you said there clicked in my mind. You're definitely in the relationship business, and having touch points throughout the process, and even when you have them on as a client, you're meeting with them like 4 times a year, I think I heard you say. Um, and then you become like I said, a therapist or whatever it is they may need, and then a coach. And being intentional about doing those types of things is extremely important. There's no question, no doubt about it. And then reaching out and learning from others who have done things and are doing things to yourself again seek out ways to grow. um, I'm thinking about when you took the first step, and you talked about going through that transition and how that's almost like a deep dive into the, deep end of the pool. And, but you find your way to the top and you start swimming and you're realizing, you can't get comfortable, even though you went through
Yeah.
that big change, you can't get comfortable. You have to be on the lookout and continue to grow. And it sounds like that's where you're at is looking
Yeah.
to continue to improve how you interact with your clients.
That's right. So I mean, one of the things I've learned from one of my mentors is, right, no matter what it is, we got to commit to it, right? Even if it's not in business, you got to commit. But once you commit, the hard part begins. That's when you have to have the courage, right? Because
Yeah.
that's when the fears, the doubts come in. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough, right? You can't do this. But then you do it, right? You put into action, right? Is it one day or is it today that you're going to do it? Take the action, and then over time, after commit, you get that courage. That's when the confidence comes through, when you realize you can do it. But then it's not stopping. Then there's something else. So you go back, you got to commit. Then you got to have more courage, right? Because then it's something else that you haven't done. So it's a lifelong process, and it doesn't matter if it's in your business, your finances, your you know, I know older gentlemen, mentors who might have estranged relationships with their children, right? Because of stuff that was said years ago. Like, and it's a lot of what we do. I say it's the evil one, but it's the thoughts in our head that, don't do it. Don't reach out to them. No, just break down the barriers and do it. Take action. Um, right. Almost every successful client I work with, or even if I don't work with them, they do three simple things that I've noticed, right? They make a plan, or well, they seek advice, they seek advice from somebody else. And then they make a plan. Does it have to be written out? I don't know. Most people put their plans in their head. They seek advice, make a plan, and then they take action. Do they fail? They fail a lot of times, but then they get back up, and more than likely they fail more than most people ever even try. The naysayers, the people that are criticizing them, because those people, they've never done that. They've never gone out of their comfort zone, right? So you have to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable and not being awkward, but that just takes time of just putting yourself out there and these things. So yeah. So even if, yeah, so I mean, a lot of things, right? You got to be a coach. I mean, I coach all of the kids' sports. I've lately trailed off, but then coaching clients, coaching friends. And it's not like trying to be their coach. It's just talking to them, being their thinking partner, like, so, um, yeah, it's, but that's sort of my passion, right? You get satisfaction and joy out of seeing somebody do something they didn't think they could do when you might have had a hand in helping them get there.
Yeah. And, you know, um, I don't know if you've ever been around like serial entrepreneurs, but they have this mindset that um, failing is just really no big deal. It's just another opportunity to learn. And what they just learned is the way I tried to do it didn't work. So I need to change it. And it's like just some people are afraid of failing, and they get pinned down, and they kind of uh, they cut themselves short. But other people are wired differently, and I don't know if it's at birth or not, but it's probably, I'm sure it can be a learned practice, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and realizing that failure is just another step towards achieving your goal. I think there's a quote by Thomas Edison, who said, and I know I'm not gonna say it right. He said, I didn't just invent the way a light bulb would work. I figured out a thousand other ways that it
That
wouldn't
didn't
work
work. Yeah.
before he got to one that did work. And that gives you some insight into how he looks at things. And so anyway, I couldn't agree with you more on that whole mindset piece.
Yeah.
But let
But
me
like
ask
to,
you.
to, to what you were saying, sorry, is there's a
No.
book that I give or I recommend to most new clients. It's called The Psychology of Money.
Mm,
Great book, right? Written years ago, but it doesn't just deal with money, right? But almost everything of our mindset, our wiring is from not just maybe birth, but the way you're raised, right? How were your parents? How were your grandparents? Who were influential? What did they do? How did they do it, right? Did they take the risk? Did they not? Did they think, And so a lot of it is just, it's ingrained in us from when we're young, and then we sort of keep the status quo, right? We
mhm.
just go down that same line that they went down, and so it does take that mindset of maybe reading some books to encourage you to do something different, try it a different way. But yes, you're going to fail, right? You're going to fail. You know how many times I've been told no when I'm trying to get a new client or whatnot, right? If I think they're the right fit, if and that no is just going to lead me to the next yes, right? And first couple of years, it's hard because it's like, what did I say? What did I do wrong? And it's like, it's not you. It's they don't need you. They have somebody. They're not ready. It's whatever it is, and you have to uh, mentally figure that out on your own, right? But yeah, so it's all learning, right? Like where we are today is just a sum of all of our experiences along this journey. And if we can't learn from those mistakes or things that didn't work, then, we're not going to really, I think, maybe succeed, excel, whatever, because we all have dreams, right? We've all got these dreams. Some of them we don't say even to our spouses, right? They're the private, like we have or they're the secret dreams, right? You got your public life, your private life, and then your secret life. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we don't tell a lot of people our secret life, even the ones closest to us. But those things, and so it's just good to have somebody that has failed or that knows the angst that you're going through to talk to and
Yeah.
and and get feedback from, right?
Right. Right.
So
You can't. I say this is a pretty common saying. You're either growing or you're dying. And you can't grow unless you go through growing pains, and those growing pains include you know making mistakes, doing it the wrong way, getting feedback, improving. It's just an ongoing process. So, and if you're not growing, you're not living, or you're
that's
living
right.
a limited life, I think. But anyway,
Yeah.
Mike, let me run through some rapid fire questions here if I can to
All
kind
right.
of finish. Is that cool? I got four here
Yeah.
lined up.
Fire away.
What is the key to success for you?
The key to success to me is discipline,
Mm.
right? Being disciplined. Waking up, there's many things in my life, back surgeries when I was in my young 20s, right? Um, uh, Issues with father relationship, and then mending that relationship when I was 23, and he passed when I was 25, and then he did well, and then left everything, not to my sisters and I, and to this new wife he had for 9 months, right? And 3 months later, she's gone back to New Mexico, Colorado, wherever she was from. And not having that victim mentality of, this, that. It's right. It's the baby steps. And it's just one day at a time, right? One step at a time. And then doing it consistently, even when you don't want to.
Mhm.
And then you don't have to think about it, right? And so I think success begins with discipline. And, I'm going to take that for whatever it is to you, right? I'm not saying you got to exercise 4 to 5 days a week, but you got to eat right. You got what you feed yourself mentally and physically is going to show just in your energy and everything else. And so, yes, to me, it's not a numbers of growing the business or anything. It's just, can I stay disciplined? Can I continue to help people and do what's right?
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. What is one piece of advice you would give to other business owners?
Don't give up. Um, Continue to trust in yourself. And when you have doubts, when, seek advice, seek somebody that you might think is a competitor, and see and realize these people are always willing to pay it forward and to help out, right? Don't don't ever think what you're going through is only you, right? There is everybody else out there has those same fears, those doubts, right? That in so keep working, right? And sometimes you got to fail, right? but dust yourself off and get back up the 99th time and try it a different way. But also, don't be so stubborn, right? My way is the only way that works, right? Take that outside advice. Yeah. And treat your employees and your clients, your customers, the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. You mentioned already one book, The Psychology of Money. Is there another one maybe you're reading now or you had read previously that has had the most influence on you?
Financial world, I would say psychology of money is my favorite. It's an easy read and everybody can relate to it, right? Now there's many others that I've got through my business coaches. I don't know if we want to get into the spiritual realm of things, but I think, just reading, right, is so great for the mind and soul that it pushes you, it gives you different perspectives on things. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to whip out my phone because I'm one of those nerds that I open up, like I take pictures of all the pages I read. Like when I read a book, man, I mean, sometimes I'll let people borrow it and they're like, I can't read this. There's too many underlined words, highlighted words that are like, you basically highlighted the whole book. Like, well, it was all good information. So, but I take pictures of them and then I create like a little folder. So I've got like 10, but you just pop that question off the top. And so I'm sort of coming to a blank right now, but but by far the best, the easiest one that everybody needs to read is Psychology of Money.
Yeah, perfect. That's so funny you say that about highlighting. That's how I know it's a good book, because by how much highlighter there is throughout it after I've read it. If there's not that much, then I'm like, well, I wasted my time reading this book. But if it's, 60% yellow, then that's probably a pretty good book.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So one last question, and this one's more towards your business. If you could magically improve one area of your business tomorrow, what would it be?
Hmm. That is a great question, Craig. Probably my biggest weakness, right, is strengths. I've got many, and trying to always work on the weaknesses. I think, you know, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I love to dive in, get going, right, and get there and get there. And then you get there. And then sometimes it's sort of stall speed at the end. And I'm not saying like the follow through. So I would say, man, just finishing everything to the very end, seeing it out before I move on to the next thing, right? I think that is one of my biggest weaknesses. And it doesn't relate to every part of the business, but certain parts of it, yes.
Hmm.
And it's something I'm always trying to refine and work on.
Hmm. Is it okay if I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
How does that show in the business?
It honestly doesn't really show to the outside. It's more of me. Like I said, the Monday and Fridays, I usually have calendar blocked off for working on the business.
Mhm.
So, it's bending the rules of letting a client come in or, maybe taking off half day to go help mama do something, get off her list, right? So it's more of me doing what I know I need to do that I block off days, weeks, and even the month in advance. So it's I think if anything, it's just slowed me down to where I wanted to be, you know, basically I'm 5 years into Cornerstone Wealth almost, right? So I've got 1, 3, 5, 10-year goals, right? And I go over them every quarter, I refine them, I change them. But so I think it's sort of held me back a little bit from where I thought I would be now. But nothing drastic, but it's always looking forward, planning forward at the quarterly Cornerstone Wealth meetings. My wife, she is a tremendous asset, and she helps me out 3 days a week here, and she's sort of the cheerleader, right? The one that helps hold me accountable when I don't want to do those things, or I say I'm going to sort of put it off and move it, right? So having somebody hold you accountable beside yourself is extremely important. And usually that person needs to be uh, tied or as vested or closely as vested as you are to see you succeed, right? Um, so, uh, yeah, I wouldn't say it's been shown to the public, right? But it's the inside, the internal battles you have of building and scaling and growing the business. That,
Yeah.
you can easily say, oh, well, I can do that tomorrow. I can do that next week, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So that gets back to the advice you would give, or what you said the key to success was the discipline piece, right? And helping.
That's it.
What I'm hearing you say is having someone hold you accountable to being disciplined, I guess,
That's it,
right?
because I mean, you start with the small steps, but there are days where you don't want to do those things. If it's exercising, eating right, if it's doing what you have to do in the business, right? Because you are your own boss, right? I mean, the clients are the ultimate boss, for sure. But I've got I'm human, right? Without
Right.
deadlines, we delay. Every human I've ever met, right? So keep those deadlines, keep being held accountable, um, keep staying disciplined because, I just take this one day off, right? Well, you keep doing that and you know where that could lead you to. So,
Yeah. 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 And you're right. We're all human. And the emotion comes into that, and oh, I think I can get away without doing it today, and then tomorrow you kind of use the same rationale, and before you know it, you've created a bad habit of not doing the things you know you need to do on a daily basis to be a success. So can't agree with you more. But so Mike, tell us your website, Cornerstone Wealth, is that right?
So Cornerstone Wealth is the name of the company. The website is CSW, like Cornerstone Wealth, CSWplan.com. You can Google us, Cornerstone Wealth, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we got all the information on the website that you need, contact, just, some good overview of how we run, how we operate, how we can help. But yeah, we're out there. Look for us. Call
Great.
us.
Great, fantastic. Well, it's been fantastic having you on the show, and you providing such engaging content for us, man. Really do
Thank you,
appreciate
Greg.
it. And
I enjoyed it, man.
yep, and I wish you the best of luck. Congratulations.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, talk
Appreciate you.
soon. Bye.
All right, bye.